How many of you guys enjoy the thrill of an amusement park? I know personally speaking, I love to get my adrenaline pumping, and I know my friend Tyler does too, and who, for the sake of this speech, I've changed his name, but his story still remains. Anyway, we were at Six Flags last summer trying to board the Batman ride, and unfortunately for my friend Tyler, he just couldn't get the guard protectors to kind of strap in on him because of his size. And it was really sad to see my friend wait 2 hours in line to not be able to then go on the ride. But it was even more sad to see how disheartened he was about it. He was conscious about his weight already, but hearing the laughter from the crowd didn't really help either. And I know my personal anecdote of my friend struggling with his weight is not uncommon either. In fact, according to the February 28th, 2022 publication of the Pretoria News, the Center for Disease Control, or the CDC for short, found the national obesity rate to be a staggering 42%, with severe obesity being at 10%. And to put that figure in perspective, that means of the estimated 330 million people living in America, 140 million Americans are obese, with 33 million Americans being severely obese. And one of the primary reasons of why obesity is so prevalent is America's addiction to sugar. And with that in mind, my name is Timmy Nguyen. I'm here to convince you why we need to limit our overconsumption of sugar. And so first, I'm going to go over the problems of sugar addiction. Secondly, address the reasons why sugar addiction is so common in the first place. And finally, offer solutions to kind of prevent sugar addiction. And with all that being said, let's first go over the problems of sugar addiction. So the first problem of sugar addiction is the development of type 2 diabetes when you take too much. The second problem is that obesity is heavily linked to sugar overconsumption. And finally, I'll address how the problems of both diabetes and obesity lead to the nation's number one leading cause of death, which is heart disease. So let's begin with diabetes. According to the Carolina Express, dated February 21st, 2019, large amounts of sugar intake is the number one leading cause of type 2 diabetes. What happens is that our body's insulin, the hormone in control of regulating our body's sugar levels, gets so overwhelmed by the amounts of sugar that the production of insulin just decreases dramatically, causing complications in various parts of the body. And some of the symptoms of type 2 diabetes, according to the August 20th, 2021 publication of the Express, include frequent urinary tract infections, volatile moods, and gangrene, the last of which is particularly gory because it causes flesh to rot away and can lead to amputation. Look it up, it's called diabetic foot. And another issue is that being diabetic is also financially disadvantageous, as diabetics need insulin to survive, the cost of which is incredibly high in America. And now that I've addressed diabetes, let's go over obesity. Both type 2 diabetes and obesity are very much linked in that being obese puts one at a greater risk of developing type 2 diabetes. But obesity itself presents more issues. Sugars present nutritional as calories, and overconsumption of sugar leads to rapid weight gain. And according to the Toronto Star, as of March 3rd, 2020, the excessive weight gain gained from sugar strains our body's regulatory functions. Blood and oxygen have a difficult time traveling across our body with excessive weight, and our joints and bones are at risk too, with extreme weight bearing a much heavier load than our bodies are designed for. And the most deadly issue, and my final problem, is heart disease. According to the Wall Street Journal, dated September 28th, 2020, both type 2 diabetes and obesity, which are both heavily impacted by excessive sugar consumption, are the two biggest factors for heart disease. Heart disease is the number one leading cause of death in America, killing about 860,000 Americans each year. And there are many debilitating health issues when one consumes too much sugar. When death is a legitimate possibility, we really need to look at the causes of this deadly addiction. And the first cause is being the addictive properties of sugar, and the second being the excessive amounts of sugar in processed foods. Excess sugar functions like a drug. According to the March 7th, 2018 publication of the Chicago Tribune, sugar is a carbohydrate, the main source of energy for humans. Natural sugars found in fruit and vegetables are actually quite good for us because they contain other nutrients, but added sugars, not so much. So consuming sugar spikes our blood sugars for hours at a time that causes a great burst of energy. We feel alive. However, like any high, there's a consequential crash as well. That cycle of highs and lows primes our brain to chase the highs. Again, very similar to how drugs work. And the second addictive property of sugar is the high potency and rapid rate of absorption it has. This is a phenomenon we experience every day in our daily lives. When we consume a candy bar, for example, we eat the candy bar, we feel energized for a short period of time, then we fall back down to reality. And these two factors might mirror that of dangerous drugs like cocaine or opiates. And the second cause of sugar addiction is the sheer amount of processed sugar in the foods we consume. According to the Coventry Telegraph, dated September 8th, 2020, the overwhelming amount of sugar in processed foods is causing many health issues like those of diabetes and obesity mentioned earlier. Food manufacturers obviously need to sell their food products, with taste being the primary factor in most consumers' decision making. Sugar makes food taste good. It's an undeniable fact, which is exactly why manufacturers will put excessive amount of sugars in their products, in the hopes that we buy that food again. This is supported by the Wall Street Journal, who on September 20th, 2020, stated that the American are consuming on average about 13% percent of their daily caloric intake as sugar, which is 3% higher than the recommended average. They cite desserts, candy, coffee with added sugars, breakfast cereals, and whatnot as the main culprits. And these foods contain an incredible amount of sugar that brings consumers back. The addictive nature of sugar and the sheer amount of it combines to create the problems of sugar addiction. I've gone over the problems and causes of sugar addiction. Now, let me present you some of the solutions to circumvent sugar addiction. If we're being realistic, it would be near impossible to cut out sugars in our diet with some extreme discipline and some very specialized diet. And like everything in life, sugar isn't bad in moderation. But the first solution is one that the government can do, specifically the Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA in America. They can place limits on the amount of processed sugar certain foods can have. I say certain because sugary treats like cookies or ice cream are predicated on sugar. It's the entire point of buying them in the first place, to enjoy the sugar. However, products like tomato sauce or breakfast cereal earlier, which cereal being especially bad because they label as healthy and essential, they definitely need their sugar counts reduced. The benefit of this is it'll force manufacturers to find healthier alternatives to have better tasting food. It also pushes the development of food science and directly benefits the health of everyone involved. And the next solution goes out to the parents out there. Parents are typically directly in charge of monitoring what their children eat. They are responsible for their children's caloric intake. Parents need to check the nutrition labels of what they're feeding their children. And I know that parents already have it difficult. Today is Mother's Day. Shout out to my mom. But dedicating time to have healthier meals is taxing. But the short-term satisfaction of eating a Rice Krispie does not outweigh the long-term consequences of excessive sugar intake. And the most important thing that is the one solution that we can do ourselves. For many of us older teenagers or adults watching this, we have the ability to choose what we eat. We have access to nutrition labels, calorie calculators, fitness areas, and everything else needed to really avoid sugar addiction. And personally, I committed the month of May to count my caloric intake and limit the amount of sugars, fats, in the food I consume. So here are some of my favorite workarounds for my sugary foods, or my favorite sugary treats. For breakfast, instead of a very sugary yogurt like Yoplait, I do non-fat Greek yogurt with sliced fruit. If I'm feeling cereal, 100% whole grain Cheerios would feature only 2 grams of sugar per serving, slice some fruit, and that's an incredible breakfast. If I'm in the mood for sweetened coffee or boba, I always try to replace the pumps of sweetener with a 0-calorie sweetener instead, like stevia. The taste is near exactly the same, but you remove the nutritionless calories of sugar. And if I really want desserts like cookies or ice cream, I'll go out my way to make it myself and add healthier sweeteners like honey or fresh fruit juice. Yes, it's more effort, but the meals are more rewarding. And ever since then, I've been eating better and healthier, and I've lost 2 pounds ever since. So I hope that you learned more. I hope today you learned more about the dangers of sugar addiction and have been convinced on why we need to eat less. I first went over the problems of sugar addiction, like in obesity and diabetes. Secondly, the causes of it, and finally offered my solutions. And with regard to my friend Tyler, ever since Six Flags, he's chosen to eat healthy. He's lost 40 pounds, and this summer we're going to Six Flags again. I'm really excited for him. All right, that's it, guys.